Hello friends, welcome to our channel and our new video. In this video, I will be narrating your real life stories and confessions. If this is your first time on our channel, don't forget to subscribe for free by turning on notifications. Today, I'm sharing the life story of one of our followers named James. James has kept his painful experiences to himself for many years, and his story affected me deeply. I'm sure it will have the same impact on you. This is the first time I am starting a broadcast for a male follower, and after hearing his story, you will understand that he is a man who deserves a pure and innocent life, free of any fault. Now, while you show your support with your comments and likes, I will start with our life story. Hello, I am James. I live in Istanbul and I'm 34 years old. You are about to hear the most tragic and shameful story you could imagine. I swear that no one has ever experienced anything worse than what I have. Even after all these years, I still cry and feel ashamed of what happened to me. Sometimes I have nervous breakdowns. No sane person could have endured what I did, but I managed to survive until today. I want to tell you everything in full detail. I would like to start with how my parents met because most of what I will tell you happened because of them. Both my mother and father lived in a village, and when they reached marriageable age, their families arranged their marriage. After living in the village for a short time, they moved to the city center and eventually to Istanbul. This is where all the terrible things started. I call it a terrible city because it witnessed my worst memories. 3 years after my parents moved to Istanbul, I was born. I am their only child. I have no siblings, so I grew up very lonely. I wish my troubles were only limited to loneliness, but I also went through a lot of trauma. When I was about 5 to 6 years old, I started noticing strange things happening at home. Unknown men frequently visited our house, and my parents would talk to them. Sometimes the same men would come back. When I asked my father about it, he would always say, "Go inside. Your mother has something important to discuss with these men." I didn't understand what was happening. Sometimes I secretly watched them from the door. My parents' bedroom area was separated by a curtain. As a child, I didn't react because I didn't understand, but now, looking back, it devastates me. My father was forcing my mother into prostitution, and it wasn't against her will. My mother wanted it too. Whenever men came to our house, my mother never looked distressed or pressured. She was always calm and composed. She would negotiate with the men and then go into the bedroom with them. This affected me terribly. Watching your mother engage in prostitution and seeing your father approve it from a very young age is truly damaging. Occasionally, I would try to look at my mother, and my father would catch and beat me. One of the men who frequently visited our house became my mother's lover. His name was Benjamin, and he was older than my mother. He would stay at our house like a guest and sleep with my mother in the bedroom, while my father slept in the living room. Benjamin often beat my mother, and my father never said a word. I was witnessing my mother sleep with another man besides my father, and it was heartbreaking. I am crying even as I write this. I'm sure my parents never cried for what they did, but I do. I never understood the relationship between my parents. I never received motherly or fatherly love. I didn't even have a proper friend. The baker's son, who was 5 years older than me, was the only person in the neighborhood who was friendly to me. We talked whenever we met, and we played a few times. One day, he invited me to play upstairs at the bakery. I thought, what could happen? And went with him. What could happen did happen there. The baker's son raped me. After that, the whole neighborhood found out, and they started taking turns raping me. My mother's reputation had spread so much that everyone thought they could rape me because she was a prostitute. When I resisted, they cursed my mother and said I was just like her. A few months later, we moved to another district, but nothing changed. My mother continued her prostitution and her relationship with Benjamin. I continued to be bullied and mistreated by everyone. I had no strength to respond. Even now, if someone came up to me and touched me, I couldn't fight back. I am that weak. My life was full of beatings and fights. Someone would hit me, and if I spoke up, their older brothers or fathers would come and beat me more. To them, I was guilty because of my mother. Over the years, I made a few friends and treated them like siblings. I invited them to my home, offered them food, and spent time with them. But they told everyone about my mother and mocked me, saying, "His mother has slept with every man. Even his father sells her, and this poor guy can't do anything about it." These people claimed to be very moral and honorable, but when they saw a woman, their morality disappeared. A truly moral man would see a woman and not think of sex. They acted like moral police about my mother, but fantasized about every girl they saw. They would shoot their own family members for a small mistake, but forget that other girls also had families. I continued to be alone. It was like being alone in a crowd. I had parents, but they were absent. I wish my mother had never given birth to me. My parents continued their prostitution. One day, the police raided our house, and all three of us were taken for questioning. We were interrogated one by one, first my father, then my mother, and lastly me. I thought this raid and the interrogations would be enough to stop them, but of course it wasn't, since there were no severe consequences. My parents returned home and continued with prostitution. I had become so used to everything that I didn't even react to the noises coming from my mother's room. It had become a routine for me, like eating or drinking water. My mother did it and my father sold her. I had accepted it helped me clear my mind and set things right. I had hope, but nothing went as expected. My fellow soldiers bullied me, gave me the worst tasks, and mocked me. My mental health deteriorated to the point of depression. I felt the depression deep in my bones. I went through very tough times. No one understood me. Everyone was selfish. In the end, I couldn't take it anymore and cut my arms with a razor. This led to a medical discharge and I couldn't continue my service. This still saddens me because it means I won't be able to serve even in an emergency. I had no choice but to return to Istanbul. Now, real life was about to begin. I aimed to find a job and work. I found a job and worked there for a few days, then left. Without worrying, I found another job, worked a few days, and left again. I realized that for almost a year, I had been continuously starting and quitting jobs. I wanted to work for money and insurance, but couldn't succeed. I couldn't adapt to a disciplined work life, and it made me very sad because, as a man in Turkey, working is essential. Even a mother wouldn't love her son if he didn't work. I never thought my parents loved me, but not working made it impossible to please anyone. But these feelings were short-lived. For example, if I saw a girl and liked her, I would start to develop feelings and soon fall in love. Everything would seem beautiful, and my perspective on life would change. It felt like summer in the middle of winter. We would become a couple, spend time together, but eventually it would end. Either a fight would happen, or we would drift apart, and everything would be over quickly, leaving me unfulfilled. So I returned to loneliness. I haven't had a single woman in my life for 10 years. My only friend and lover is loneliness. Although I try to see loneliness positively, I am sure it is not good for me. I want to have a wife and children and live a happy life, but it's not happening. I don't want to complain to God, but what should I be grateful for after living such a life? There is nothing good in my life. After giving up on love, I aimed to start working again, but I stumbled again. I worked for a few months and then left. My last job was from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., even more comfortable than being a civil servant. But a month ago, I resigned from that job too. I can't love anything. I can't love life, working, or standing on my own feet. I am too fragile for all of this. I have a very delicate heart and body. I wish I had a sibling. I wish I could have run into their arms whenever someone beat or raped me. We could have cried and laughed together. A sibling is your best friend. I'm sure if I had a sibling, they would have always supported me. Maybe I had a sibling, but they were aborted or died. I expect anything from my family. Speaking of family, my mother is still a prostitute and my father says nothing. I have also become accustomed to it. Call it weakness or acceptance. I no longer react to anything. I have left them to their own devices. They will never earn an honorable living in my eyes. I wish my parents had worked honestly, even if it meant being poor. We had food and a house, but we never had a respectable life. Today, you can be poor and become rich tomorrow. You can be hungry today and full tomorrow, but if you lose your honor, it's gone forever. For example, I see some women in our neighborhood who clean houses to earn money. They will never earn an honorable living in my eyes. I wish my parents had worked honestly, even if it meant being poor. We had food and a house, but we never had a respectable life. Today, you can be poor and become rich tomorrow. You can be hungry today and full tomorrow, but if you lose your honor, it's gone forever. For example, I see some women in our neighborhood who clean houses to earn money. What they earn is not much, but they bring home honest food. They have peace and loyalty in their homes. When I look at my own house, it's like a public passageway. I hate everything and everyone. I have become so full of hatred that I lock myself in my room and spend all my days there, staring at the walls and questioning life. They say heaven is under the feet of mothers, but is heaven under the feet of such a mother? Should I respect such a father? I hate them, but I don't know what God will do. God commands respect for parents, but I don't want to respect mine. I know I will be questioned for this, but when I reach the other world, I will also have complaints. Now, those hearing my story might ask why I remain so passive and silent. Friends, I am tired of everything. My parents' dishonor, people's cruelty, and my failure to hold a steady job. That's why I've gotten used to everything. Nothing inside me wants to react because nothing changes anyway. I share this to pour out my heart, knowing you will understand me well. I have no expectations from life anymore. I see myself as a waste and want to die as soon as possible. Even when crossing the street, I don't look left or right, hoping a car will hit me and end it all. If you have a good family, please value them and take care of them. I never experienced these feelings. Finally, I want to say one thing. Don't let yourself be shattered just to avoid hurting anyone in this short life. Yes, friends, we have come to the end of our life story. I thank Mr. James for his courage in sharing his experiences. It is not easy for a man to tell such things. Mr. James, before these experiences pull you further down, you need to decide to seek treatment. The traumas, betrayals, and dirty events you experienced in your childhood have drained your life energy. You need to get psychological treatment from a reputable institution without thinking of death or anything else. After your treatment, you need to strive to work regularly. This work life could be your salvation. You can get your own place and start a new life from scratch. I don't think you can improve as long as you live in that house where immoral things happen. Therefore, you need to set goals for yourself and fight to achieve them. Life is harsh, but everyone has the right to live the life they deserve, and you deserve it to the fullest. Until our next video, take good care of yourselves. Love and respect.